everyone. It's Betty from Awaken Possibilities with Sandy, our fabulous Fridays. And today we're going to talk about self-respect. Are we respecting ourselves? And I actually was thinking about this, Sandy, and I'm like, all right, I know we're going to talk about self-respect. I'm going to assume you want to talk about it on an individual basis.
I think both. I wanted to talk about it individual, what it is, what we're going to do about it, what are signs maybe you need to step up your level of respect. And I know, so I know where you want to go with this and talk about it on the collective level. So I
want to do both, because I think once we raise our own, when we raise our own, we raise the collective.
And it has to, I'm not saying it has to be in that order, but you pretty much have to have a good sense of who you are to raise your frequency, because with everything that's going on, people are starting to freak out and they're getting upset and they're going into emotional overdrive and the dramas are coming out. That lowers the collective frequency. So it has to be recognized on both fronts, right? Individually and collectively. So I just heard there was an article in the paper that Toronto COVID cases, they're going to airlift them from Toronto Hospital to Cambridge Hospital. So we are not going into second stage opening. So is that about self-respect, or is that just about these animals think they can do whatever the hell they want? And that just represents psychopathy on their part. So it's not that people are taking it from them. What do you do at this point, right? So there's going to be a heck of an uprising.
Well, you know what? I actually think there's too much tolerance and not enough self-respect. So if you respect yourself, you're not going to let them push you around.
I'm going to say yes and no. They've got so much power still at this point until we get our consciousness up even further, because they're just doing whatever they want, just bulldozing us.
Absolutely. But when people say no, I mean, I've seen people at the airport saying, no, I'm not going to your hotel. Fuck you. Give me a ticket. And you don't have the right to do that. You can't imprison me against my will and make me pay for it. Nope, not doing it. And you can do the same with your hospital or anything else. It's like, you know what? No, I'm not going. When did we lose our ability to say no? What happens to us?
Okay, I'm not. They've been slowly chipping away at this. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're locking down the whole community. They're keeping us in lockdown because they've decided to send COVID patients, supposedly COVID patients, which has not been isolated, to the Cambridge Memorial Hospital. So they're locking everybody down for that reason. So where do people go from there? Do they go out and protest even more? Who knows? I don't know what they're going to do. Right. So this is where it's just they're not going to stop until you actually break a few of their skulls. That's the only thing they're going to recognize is the physical threat, not physical threat, but physical consequence. Consequence is a better word.
Yes. And how, I think right now I believe that they're running scared because they realize that we're onto them.
But they don't care. When they're afraid, all that means is they will pull out more stops to get their way. So it doesn't matter that they're afraid of us. We're not winning at anything per se at this point. We're in the process of bringing in major changes. But we respect ourselves and understand what the main game is individually and collectively. Okay. Right? So, because there's on so many levels that they're after us. What I really like what you and I talked about the Toronto protocol. I want to touch up on that a little bit, how they're trying to take people away from respecting yourself. Because if you respect yourself, you start vibrating a little higher and you stand more in your power. So then you don't mind showing up at places and you know what no means no. You have the right to say no. A lot more boundary issues start coming to the surface, and you realize, no, they're taking what's not theirs. So there's all kinds of things. This is going to be a great conversation, right? But where do we start? Whether we start with collective or individual, what's the definition of self-respect? I have one. I looked one up. Pride and confidence in oneself, a feeling that is behaving with honor and dignity. Well, somebody's not behaving with honor and dignity when they're flying patients out of Toronto into another community hospital so they can infect the area. So it's just modern day smallpox and the Indian blankets, We're going to bring the disease to you. So this is psychopathy that we're dealing with still. So it's not that the people are not respecting themselves. Some might not even understand this is even going on, right? But my point is, when we start building ourselves up even stronger in our own personal power, we rise higher. Why I'm saying this, I've been working with some people lately that the emotions are getting really pulled taunt, family fighting, things along that line, then they're getting upset. They're lowering the frequency. Self-respect is a really great way when you understand, when I say you, I mean all of us, right? But when we understand the collective, how to raise your self-respect and know what your rights are, that helps you start stepping into the power of knowing where your rights start and stop and somebody else's start and stop. And then that is going to give us even more power to stand up and say no. So many people have been knocked down. They don't know they have the right to say no.
You're absolutely right. Sorry, because you froze there. Oh,
yeah,
she's gone. And I think the big key there, sorry, because you froze and then popped off for a second.
Isn't it funny? Because I saw you freeze. So it's interesting. I might have to tether next time. I'll tether in with the Ethernet.
Let me just make sure I'm on the right.
So we have to look at building our own self-esteem up, which is part of self-respect. So this ties in with everything that we're talking about building the individual core of personal power. And self-respect is all part of this. So another, an innate respect for oneself as a human being. This is what self-respect is all about. It's at your very core of knowing who you are and what you're entitled to, and that you're entitled to it the same as everybody else, right? Self-respect allows a person to set healthy boundaries, feeling good and worthy about being treated. And they know they deserve to be treated well. So we have self-respect. Some people with self-respect are calling out the nonsense, but we also have people who are in a situation right now, they believe everything, they're buying it hook, line, and sinker. Is that because they're unconscious or they don't respect themselves enough to know they have rights? Like, who knows what the underlying issue is there, right? Betty, you're frozen. Betty. Okay, thanks, Dave. I'm just going to keep talking then until Betty comes back on.
I'm back. I just popped back on. I was like, oh my gosh, what can I do? I'm on my strongest one, and
okay,
my tether is downstairs, so I can't go down there.
Dave is just let us know that it looks fine out there. So I'm just going to keep talking, and I'll just ask people to comment if we freeze up, or if you can keep hearing us and one of us can keep talking if one of us cuts out. So having self-respect means we know who we are and what we stand for and what our values are. So we build ourselves up from the inner core of the things that we're already talking about pretty much every week, right, Betty? Like, this is just another way of looking at the same issues. It's accepting both your strengths and your weaknesses. So what is really interesting about personal growth, going inside can be hard for some people, depending on what experiences they've had and how afraid they are to go in and see their emotions. But sometimes that's where you know where you need to strengthen yourself. And so you know where your strengths are, but you know what you're not good at. So then you either need to learn how to do something or bring in help. And I'll give an example. Technology is not my strong suit. So I know when I started this, I needed people to show me technology, get me set up. So I understand where I'm good at things and where I'm not. Or if I was going through self-doubt about something, I had to go in and I had to look at it and say, why am I doubting myself? Oh, yeah, I know why. And one thing I didn't plan on talking about today, there's a lot of external causes of low self-respect. People have been hurt, or they've been made the black sheep in the family. That can really make people doubt themselves. But the idea is that you don't want to doubt yourself. You want to see what the cause of it is. Assess it. Is this yours? Is it somebody else's? It's no different than an emotional energy that traps on your body. So somebody's opinion of you, sometimes people will judge you and say things about you, and the opinion of you, they'll tell you an opinion of you to bring you down. But over time, depending on how young you were, if that happened, that can affect your self-esteem and your self-respect. But the idea is it's your job as the adult to get out of that. So I thought we could talk about some really fun things. And, you know, being nice is not a personality trait. It's not about self-respect. It's not about being nice. It's about standing up for yourself, standing true to yourself, standing true to your values, having healthy boundaries, knowing when it's time to put you first, knowing when it's time to put other people first. And then we're more coherent. Because again, I'm going to go back to the people who are really upset this week about things are going wrong, whether it's in families or, you know, maybe another lockdown information's coming out. If we lower our frequency and we start doing the frequency bob, we're going to interfere with the frequencies that are coming on, because we're going to feel down and out or not good about something or whatever. So we really, the more coherent we are in our energy fields, I think the better we're going to do for ourselves. And the more we can stand up, as people start to stand up when we realize how worthy we are.
Absolutely. And I think too, the people who are having a lot of issues with family, because I mean, I'm hearing it this week too. It seems to be coming up more and more, especially around the arm thing and having it or not. And this is where boundaries and that this boundaries when it comes to this whole, like this last year and a half with the face diapers and this, people seem to think that they can cross your boundaries. And this is where you need to put, and I think, it's been a year of really trying to break us down as humans and our just who we are. It's 11:11 right now. Who we are, what we believe in. And I can only speak because I live in Canada. So Canadians are, we've been told, we've been programmed from the very beginning. We're tolerant and we're nice. We're nice. And nice, isn't it? So you put up with this stuff. And when do we say enough is enough? I read something really interesting. In France, they have a tolerance law. And it's kind of like squatters' rights. So if you've put up with something for so long, you no longer have the right to say no to it. Interesting, right?
How? So it depends on the application of that.
Well, this was somebody was the thing I read was it was in France. This guy had this woman who for 20 years was walking her dog, and finally he just got on his property. Finally got sick of it, took her to court, and because she'd done it for 20 years, even though it was his private property, because he'd allowed it for 20 years, she now has the legal right to walk across his property.
So look what pain and anguish do. So when you look at all the laws, the perpetrators are the ones who get off and the victims are the ones who end up in jail. There's another example. The homeowner doesn't have their rights met.
No.
So everything is intentionally designed to drive us crazy. Look at the lockdowns. For people who they know there's nothing wrong. I was out today and I won't say where I was, but people weren't wearing their mask and they saw me when I walked in. They're like, hi, can I help you? And, it was really friendly. And then their mask kind of slips a bit and they're behind a partition and their mask is right off, right below their chin. So it's people are starting to catch on that what a sham all of this is, right? But when we look at, so when you're talking about that law, look at the UNDRIP law they're trying to pass in Canada, that anybody can say they're an Indigenous person and walk into your house and say, your house is my house now. So they're trying to drive everybody crazy. But here's the thing that people haven't quite figured out with COVID. This always was the system, maybe not quite to this degree, but anybody who was caught up in the system or family courts, they went through this rigmarole. So if somebody was hurt and developed like an anxiety or a depression, and they wanted custody of their children, they were the ones labeled with the mental illness.
Yep.
These guys are sick. They're psychopaths. They get off on the pain and suffering. So it's why it's so important that we we build ourselves up, understand what self-respect is. And I know you want to talk about it in the collective as well, but it is about the self and strengthening the individual. And how do you strengthen your consciousness and increase consciousness? What is consciousness? It's awareness. You bring more awareness to it.
Yes. And I believe, and my personal opinion is that as we raise it and we start on an individual basis, putting those boundaries in, respecting ourselves and saying, yeah, no, this isn't going to fly with me. Even on a day-to-day basis with the people around us, that it brings awareness to it and they will change and know that they can't cross those. And it snowballs into a collective going, oh, wow, look, Sandy is, maybe I can say the same thing to the next person who does that to me.
And that's what all this is about. And our videos are about empowering people, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's looking at it from, because it becomes a snowball effect. I think, I sent you that video from that gentleman in Australia who was,
he was ranting.
Livid, like literally spitting mad. He was spitting, which I thought was funny. I'm like, well, there you go. Spitting mad. There's an example of it, but he was spitting mad because the premier basically went on the news and said there were no C19 cases. Nobody died of it in all of Australia. And he was like, what the?
Okay. So when you're in a higher observation point, they're trying to torment everybody's minds by saying that. They're trying to torment them by saying, oh, there were no cases. Nobody died from it. And didn't say no cases. Nobody died.
It's gaslighting.
So this guy turns around and got mad at other people who say there is, but he's not mad at he's mad at the politicians, but he's not drawing the attention to the politicians who are lying, locking people up illegally, making people wear certain things on their face. So he never went after them. Nobody goes after the bullies. They always go after.
Sandy, he did. He was like, you guys are. He called them all kinds of, and he's like, you're the problem, but also the problem is the people who are allowing it. He said he was going to deck them. I don't recall him saying he was going to deck the politicians, but he said he was going to deck people who said there's COVID and COVID deaths. Well, that's what, near the end. I'd like to deck some politicians myself, but I can't because I don't have access to them.
He didn't say he was going to deck the politicians, but he said he's going to deck the next person who says there's COVID deaths. And I'm like, quit picking on each other, quit turning on each other. And this is what I'm saying earlier. So I have a high level of self-respect. I have a high level of self-esteem. I did not give anybody consent for this bullshit that's going on. They are taking rights that aren't theirs. Yes, we're going to have to get a little more organized to stand up and actually do something about it.
Absolutely.
Alan Fountain was on Nicholas's show, I think, yesterday, and he's talking about getting, what do you call that? Think tanks together. And I'm like, yes, because we can get the think tanks together talking about various things. And what that's going to do is let enough other people see what's really going on and see different perspectives. So he realizes all the charities around child protection, most of them are infiltrated and are in on the trafficking.
I think that most of them were actually created
for that.
They weren't infiltrated. They were created for it. If you look at who created them.
Some were and some were, like when I look at, because I've been watching this for a while in Ontario, but what my point is he's saying, well, you should get together and see what charities we support. And it's like, no, create new ones that you set up the oath of children's rights. Like what is, like if you know these are all the abuses, commit them to memory, and you're going to sign that you're not going to do any of these to any of these children. So it's a saying, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. We're saying, up front, you're signing off that all of these things are harmful to children and you will not do them. And this is for the frontline workers, anybody who works in it. And you're going to see who doesn't want to sign it. So we're going to start breaking it down through intention as well, through these, through information that can come out, right? So that's what I see, but it doesn't mean I'm right. And that's not the only option. But so who at the Cambridge Hospital is going to say, you're not bringing COVID people here? If this was the Black Plague, do you think they would stop and say, you're not bringing the Black Plague here? Does anybody have any balls in our society? I'm going to say no. The people who work in the system don't even have any. They just do as they're told. So
they're getting paid to take them. Let's get real. They're getting everybody gets a bonus for the COVID-19 patients. So this is a big haul for Cambridge. This is a big money haul for Cambridge.
But the cost is coming to everybody else. It's a haul for the Cambridge Memorial Hospital, the hospital itself and the board of directors. It's not a haul for Cambridge because they're going to lock the Tri-Cities down and not reopen. Oh,
well, they get money for that too. I'm not talking about regular people. I'm talking about those at the top. Are raking in the cash for all this.
This is why it has to be called out, and this is why it all has to be called out, because it's the people who work in the industry who are the problem. But it doesn't mean the average person doesn't have self-respect. But I want to talk more about what self-respect is, how we can bring more of it into our lives. What are signs that you need to maybe stand up and stop being pushed around, right, and give people the opportunities to know that for themselves. Modeling self-respect needs to come back into fashion. A lot of people don't model self-respect for themselves, so then other people don't have it even in their family to know that if somebody's getting pushed around, that you have the right to say no, or somebody chooses to be the gopher and do everything for everybody else. So there's all kinds of reasons why this is happening, right? But this is what it's all about, encouraging and allowing people to say no when it's appropriate. So some things that don't happen anymore is we don't hear people praising people for things that they do right, or they do something that's really neat or good. We don't hear people say, well, that was fantastic. I was really impressed with what you did. So we aren't even praising and helping raise each other's self-esteem in the collective, in my opinion. Everybody's still trying to get ahead and see what they can get for themselves, right? So what are examples of respecting yourself? So I came up with a few. I know you've got some off the top of your head, Betty. Refuse to be spoken down to. Just no, you're not talking to me that way. Setting boundaries when needed. Ending relationships if needed. Saying no to unreasonable requests. Sometimes people ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, but you don't necessarily owe them an explanation, but you can just say that doesn't work for me. But this is what they don't want people seeing. Setting standards in relationships. There'll be no lying in this relationship. If I like, this is a deal breaker for me. If you step out and you're not telling the truth, this is a deal breaker for me. So these are the kind of things that you can do to show that you're setting standards for yourself, and you're setting like the examples of respecting yourself. Refusing to settle for less. You know, when you take less so somebody else can get a little more. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, so why are you putting somebody else's needs ahead of yours? Is that a condition from your childhood, or just something you've learned over time that it's easier if you're not the center of attention, then people leave you alone? Not compromising in order to get along in society. And that's kind of what we're talking about with all this jab and stuff. I don't compromise. I've got no reason to compromise. I don't break any laws. I don't cause any grief. People have told me I don't cause, Sandy, you don't cause any, like you don't take any grief. And I'm like, I don't cause any. So why should I take any? Do you know, like there's got to be an understanding of knowing what limits you've got, what you will take and what you won't take, so that when you're in any kind of a situation, you can defend yourself. And don't get me wrong, there's times somebody will say something to me, and if they're snarky, I turn around and I just snark right back.
Yeah. And to add to your list, I think you first and foremost is actually what we talked about before, is loving yourself. Is that self-love actually creates the self-respect, because when you know your own value, then you have self-respect. It's easier to cultivate the self-respect. And then secondly, that also wasn't on there, was trusting yourself. Is trusting your instinct.
So we're going to come in. Those are just some examples. We're going to come in. So what I've got is what will self-respect do for you? I wrote that out. Okay. And then is it time to start respecting yourself? So I've got a few things out here that talk about how to increase your self-respect, those kind of things, right? So what will self-respect do for you? So you've talked, those are two that you just put in there, right? Those are the things that you're going to get. So what comes first, self-love or self-respect? I think it all comes in as you grow, it overlaps. That's just my experience and what I've seen with people. So it's not that you're going to love yourself first, then all of a sudden the self-respect comes in, because you might have boundary issues with somebody who doesn't respect you. And then you got to go back and work on that, right? So you will like yourself.
Wait a second. What do you mean? You may have boundary issues with somebody and they don't respect you, but.
So you start to love yourself, but you still have to go back and start putting that boundary in and go into self-respect, because just because you love yourself doesn't mean you're still not going to be a doormat. And I'm not saying it's all black and white, Betty. There's a lot of what you're saying.
No. I think I actually think all of this actually culminates together. And
totally, we're just breaking it out.
Yes, you're not going to 100% love yourself overnight, even though you're doing the work. You're not going to 100% trust yourself overnight while you're doing this work. It's all steps. Same with self-respect. Yeah, you might let somebody walk all over you for a little bit, because maybe that's a relationship that is a little bit more touchy or difficult for you, and you're, I'm afraid to touch that one, but I can start practicing here, and it builds. So I don't think it's like, if there's no like snap your fingers, everything comes together. Like I'm just saying that but okay. All of them come at, like, they all feed off of one another.
Look at all the videos
and respect.
Binge watch the videos if you want to, and you'll get different tips and all this. So let's go back to the example you said in France, where the man let this woman walk her dog on his property for 20 years. Is that like saying, oh, I've been in an abusive relationship for 20 years. You got to stay there because you allowed it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't that just drive people crazy?
Well, that. It just shows the insanity of the laws that we have on the books. And I mean, that's in France. I could see the same thing happening here, because, you don't have any rights.
Like, seriously, if UNDRIP comes in, they haven't described an Indigenous person to say Indigenous Canadian, Indigenous Australian. So they're trying to make it murky, so everybody fights with each other while they get us crazy. And the idea is that they energy harvest us, loosh harvest, because everybody's emotions are all taught, and they're hurt, their feelings are hurt, instead of staying above it and just saying, we see what you're doing, right?
And actually, I want to address something. Jack made a comment. It seems like you can call it out till you're blue in the face. Most people don't want to listen. And when they do listen, they often just don't care. And you know what, Jack? That's fine. The thing is that's where you actually create the boundaries. Like, are you going to continue to have these discussions? Are you going to continue to have that person in your life who chooses ignorance? That's really all I'm going to call it out is people today are choosing ignorance over facts.
So if they're choosing, then that's they're still making a choice. So it might not be, they might just be doubling down for whatever reason, but they're choosing. So it's not over facts or anything. They're choosing a certain way to be, right? But sometimes, and what I'm finding with a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, sometimes it's time to end a relationship, even if you say for now. You know, you don't have to go and tell the person you're leaving, but you just don't pick up the phone and don't call them. Just slowly step out of their life and then see what happens. Who knows what's going to happen 6 months down the road, right? And then you might get together again and then find out it's the same nonsense and just say we've changed too much, our vibration. We're not anywhere near the same, what do you call that? Like on the same page. So that it's just, there's nothing holding you together with that person and the glue's gone, right? So this is what will self-respect do for you. It'll help you honor your needs and your wants and your values. So even when you start to respect yourself, you can go in even further. What's the difference between a need and a want? You know, like people sometimes don't even decide. They decide they get a certain amount of money and they want to go out and buy a new sports car, but they don't have money to pay the rent. So they can't discern between their needs and the wants, right? So all of this is about self-exploration. That's what I find in going in deeper. Your level of confidence will increase when you know who you are and you respect yourself. You carry yourself different. And the confidence is what we need to help bring our personalities back in line and step into our morality, our integrity again. Is what you said earlier, Betty. You love yourself more. You trust yourself completely. You know where others' rights start and stop, and you know where yours do. And I think we mentioned this last week. Somebody had contacted me, and I knew right away what their intention was. So when all this self-respect starts coming in, you start feeling into your body, and you start to pick up on more senses. You step into your autonomy of who you are. Your sense of self-worth returns. Betty, you and I've talked about this so much. People don't feel worthy.
Yes.
Right? And if you don't feel worthy, you can't respect yourself. And if you can't respect yourself, you can't love yourself. And it doesn't matter which way we look at this. It's just one big kaleidoscope. All these things are interwoven, right? You ditch the energy signature that attracts repeat patterns, personality types that find you. So sometimes it's like, why do I always pick loser people to be in relationships with? And it turns out you're giving a signature. So when you start respecting yourself, you can out vibrate that lower vibration.
Yep. Who was it? You attract what you're at the same vibration that you're going to. So that's actually a really good way to know where you're vibrating is who's coming into your life and where you need to change maybe.
Right. I was watching a video last night. I started watching, it's about a 3-hour video, and I think it was Les Brown talking, and he goes, I had to realize I had to ditch all my friends who make no money, who have no money, because that's who I was surrounding myself with. And look at him now. He said it took him 30 some odd years before he could step into his game, but he realized he just had to change the people that he was around. So you elevate your frequencies as we're talking, because you won't tolerate their behavior. And I think this is going to assist in the awakening process as people get back into how great humans are. So if we can understand this individually, will we understand collectively, like, hey, we rock. We are absolutely amazing. We are the ones we're waiting for. That elevates our frequency as well.
Yep.
So those were just some that I had put down for what self-respect does for us. It really elevates us and lifts us up. This is why it's so important to do the work. And I'm not saying nobody's done the work here. I'm not applying anything like that, but it doesn't matter what work you've done. If you've done inner work, then you go out and look at the collective, then you learn more and you come in and do more inner work. So it's not that it's only one or the other.
No, and this last year and a half, it's been a very big mirror to, well, I think it's shown us a lot of where we still need growth. Even those of us, like, and I think a lot of these people, the people who are watching and are, all of us have been doing the work, but it's been such a challenge, and we've actually had to face some of our fears and some of the things that maybe we thought we'd worked on, but until we all got a slap in the face, right, a year and a half ago, and they keep slapping us over and over, and it doesn't matter what country you're in. This is happening all over the place. It's not just the crazy that's happening here in Canada. It's happening in the US, it's happening in Spain, it's happening in France, it's happening in England, it's happening in Australia and New Zealand in different, maybe slightly different ways, but they're stripping us of everything that we hold dear and took it for granted.
Some of it we took for granted, but when you look at this Toronto protocol, the whole idea of this protocol Today, so this was 1967, and back in 1995, I think, they're trying to destroy humanity, and this is how they're doing it. Today, we have to make so that this spirit is translated by a world society of the leisure under all its forms. This leisure has to consist of sex, of the drugs, of the sport, of the travel and exoticism, and leisure activities in general, but accessible to all sectors in society. The man has to manage to believe that it is modern and that his modernity consists of his capacity and his possibility of being able to enjoy much and now all which surrounds him. So we've been basically led to believe that we're all supposed to have these great lives instead of really look to say, how can we make a difference on the planet? Again, this video yesterday says you have no business dying until you've made an impact on the planet and on humanity. And I thought, so it was really quite empowering. I haven't gone through it all yet, but it was very empowering just to hear that we are here to do something big.
Well, imagine in the last year, we actually lost all of those things, or a lot of them, right? We did. We lost all of our leisure and fun, including the sports, right? That was gone. That's just coming back. And I mean, I've always thought that, sorry for you guys who are really into your sports, but people who get so passionate about their team, and it's like depression if they lose and overly ecstatic if they win. It's like, you didn't freaking play the game. You're a bystander. Yeah. And why is there such an ownership to something that isn't even a part of you, really? It's an interesting way and women have the same thing, maybe in other things, right? That we, maybe it's shopping, that great buy, or, you really wanted something and it's like, yes,
I've got another pair of shoes to add to my other 50 pair.
Yes, because, and then that joy or sadness is really based on nothing. It's empty. And you go back to feeling just the way you were before, right? Very soon after. So it's a quick fix. It lasts a day or two, and it's gone.
And look at the games. Look at the games. When you talk about the games, they're rigged. We've seen this. Like, they're gaming the game. Everything is rigged in the games, and people are losing their minds and cheering for their team, and it's rigged. Like, it's crazy what we've accepted before as the standard in life, as the value or standard that we set in life, that, we have the right to go to sporting events. Like, who cares?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. And Deb actually says modernity and Moderna. Absolutely. And you know what? That's the funniest thing. Early on in this, I was talking to a friend, and that person could not believe what was going on, and that we would because there's this belief that humanity has evolved so much that we wouldn't do this. And I was like, just because you have a phone that you can carry everywhere makes you modern, makes it civilized. Take a look around the freaking world. What's so civilized about it? Because we live in houses and not in huts.
And nice yards.
We have nice yards. Like, we can cook on a stove
and we can
not an open fire. Is that actually made us more evolved as humans? Actually, we have devolved as humans because we have left our heart center. When we left this and became about all of this outside of us, we lost our humanity, or pieces of our humanity. And that's why, I think the last years, we're all just realizing it, and that we didn't need these things. We didn't need the sports. You survived a year without sports. You survived a year without shopping. You survived a year without so many of the things we took for granted. And it gave us the time to find ourselves and our true values. Yeah. And our value personally.
So this is what we're working on, the quest, right? Yeah. Exactly. About wrestling. That was another one that was all fake. Totally.
Yep. I just saw somebody talking about that.
It's right here. No, is it Noel?
No, I know, but there was somebody talking about how, I think it was Jason Q on Nick, talking about how everybody's always known that wrestling was fake, right?
So why would you waste some time watching that? That's an hour of your time you're never getting back. I could never understand why people would go and do those kind of things, right? Why would you watch something? You're never going to get that time back. Do you know what it just seems such a waste of energy. That's what I thought anyways, right?
Yeah.
So is it time to start respecting yourself? So do you know what, can Can we look at some things, when you maybe aren't respecting yourself is when you attract losers, energy vampires, takers, or whiners. People who always, oh, you got so much and you're so lucky and that kind of stuff. Or people who suck you dry. You might need to step up your self-respect if those are the people you're around. Now, here's the thing. If you've got those kind of people around you, what are you going to do to set up, maybe ask yourself some questions to see if they're taking advantage of you. One would be, do you have a relationship where they want you to do things for them, or you ask them to do things for you, where it's a codependent relationship? Do they ask you for money all the time, or are you asking them for money? Are you the vampire with some people but not others? Do they ask you to listen to their heartaches and their stories but not comment all the time? Do you do that to them? Because normally if somebody's telling me something, they're either looking for a solution or they say, I just need to get this off my chest. Okay. But if they're just bringing everybody down because they need to be in drama mode. So these are the kind of people that maybe you decide, if I've got any of those in my life, maybe I'm going to decide I want something different. So I'm going to either set boundaries or I'm going to raise my expectations of relationship, and let's go out and do something fun. And just don't go into the normal, oh, we're not going here again, are we? And sometimes it takes a bit of time to process horrible things, I know, but we still have to work going through those things so it doesn't come up all the time. Sometimes things really hurt, and I get that. And people are going to go through and process it. But sooner or later, that person has to move beyond it, or they're just going to suck you dry,
Absolutely. And I think through this process, we have to let go of the fear of rejection and being alone. And because I don't know how many times we've said it, it's like right now, and we've all seen this and we've all lost people during this process. But you do find others and people who are more aligned, and we attract better quality. Maybe that's probably not a good, but people who are more aligned with our vibration, not necessarily better quality, but better quality for our lives. And things that bring out the best in us instead of being dragged down all the time, because you want people who are going to lift you up, not pull you down.
Totally. And I'm noticing that there's some people who are just content with their life the way it is. They have no desire to make it better, make any changes. They're going to go along. If that's not where you're at, you might decide how much time you spend with them. Maybe if you would normally spend a weekend with them, maybe you don't. Maybe you just spend an afternoon with them, or change your schedule up a little bit so that you can still be in the energy you need to be in more and still maintain that relationship, whatever it is. Or maybe you just go out for coffee instead of normally you go out for dinner and a movie or something. You just, I'm busy right now, but can we meet for coffee? And just shake it up a bit so that you bring more of your energy back to you. That person's either going to say, I really like it. You've changed so much. I'm really excited. How are you doing it? And they're going to want to do it for themselves. Or they're going to stay where they are. Either way, it's not about deciding what they should do. We all make our own choices, right? But this is a process to go through to start respecting yourself more.
And trust, and I bring up trust because Deb's best friend of 30 years sucks her dry, and she believes her psychologist before God, and psychologists are psycho now. They've always been psycho.
They've always been psycho.
They've always been psycho. That's the way the whole thing is. That whole system has been
psycho, the rapist,
and to actually do more harm than good. And actually, you know what? This might be controversial, but I think, you know what? She believes her psychologist before God. Well, guess what? If we're all fractals of God, then she needs to learn how to trust herself, because there is a God self within each of us. Yes. And that's what we're supposed to trust. All of the answers to the universe are within us. And that is in the Bible. Jesus said it. So, anybody who's like a, heavy duty Christian, it's in there. Okay. It's in there. But we forget that's not what's taught. That's not what's emphasized in the churches. But everything we need to know is in here when we actually let go of all of the other crap and go within, and we learn to trust.
And it's interesting working with a therapist, even if the therapist is excited about the concept that she trusts him more than anybody else, that could imply that person has God complex. Because if you're working with someone to empower them, the idea is that you're facilitating that person finding their strength and rebuilding their pillar, including their self-esteem, self-worth, self-respect, setting better boundaries. You're showing them, maybe helping them do it, but it's they who gets the credit. You're facilitating. I think it's narcissistic the way the system is set up. Who wants to be considered God? I'm at the top of my field. What does that mean? You know what I mean? So I think a lot of this is falling down.
It means you have been brainwashed so well and indoctrinated in your field that we will give you a nice big fat title and make you feel good about yourself because you're a good little puppet. That's what it means.
It's exactly what it means, right?
That is exactly what it means. There's no top of your field. Well, you're probably an ass.
And you have a piece of paper, but that doesn't mean you're uniquely human. We are all
Again,
uniquely
guess
human.
what you can use that piece of paper for? Wiping your ass. That's how good it is, and that's how much it's serving humanity.
There's a lot of arrogance around this. We went through this, Betty and I, on the weekend, where somebody announced that she had a master's in social work. I think she said it was social work. And I'm like, who cares? And I referenced it as a PhD, and she goes, it's a master's. And I'm like, I think you're attached to your degree, but you're no more qualified to be human than I am. I don't care. If this person's in social work and it turns out 70% of the children are trafficked from social work, that means the best they're ever going to get is a 30% effective rate, because 70% is not working for. That's an F in my book. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just that piece of paper assuming that this person was more qualified to be human. So this is really good that we're saying this, because we want people to know, for self-respect, other people might be talking to you a certain way. That would be talking down to somebody, where I didn't take it. No. I know nobody's more qualified to be me. They might have different skills than me, but they're not more qualified to be human, right?
No, exactly. And even like, I think I said this last week, is like, even anybody who's in that, any teacher should want their student to, you have something to give, but you hope that, your brightest and your best are going to actually be better than you and be able to do what you do and more. And I used to tell some of my students that when I was teaching and when I was working, and I was like, you know what, I know what I'm talking about, but you're going to learn it. I'm giving it to you, and now you can do whatever you want with it, and you can go further than me. Plus, I knew I was leaving, so it was like, yeah, go for it. And it's like, reach for the stars. I didn't want to be at the top of the food chain, because I knew what came with that. So I was like, I'm good here, and I knew it was just coasting for a while and doing something I enjoyed, and hopefully giving some knowledge. But then it's like, but reach for the stars. Do whatever you want.
It works for you, right?
Yeah.
I think so too. So what is some more time for you to step up? If you don't speak up and things are bothering you and you're bottling it up inside, it's probably a sign that you don't respect yourself enough. If you feel guilty, if you don't put others' needs ahead of yours, sometimes people are guilted into that. If you've not mastered the no word, no, practice. That's the one you can do mirror work in front of the mirror. No, and practice getting that one down, right? They are there for others, but others are not there for them. Now, that can be a sign of low self-esteem, or that could be a pattern, a program that you were taught at an early age that you weren't worthy or deserving of. So there's a few things that can overlap in this. You don't see the beauty in your own natural gifts, talents, and abilities. This is what is so unique with self-respect, because we are all so different. I love what you're saying earlier about reach for the stars. We have gifts, we have talents, we have abilities, but this is what we're here to bring on, each of our own in our own way. When you respect yourself, you don't mind saying the quirky things about yourself, because one, it's true, but two, you've created something out of it or turned it into something that's going to be really good and beneficial in your life. And one of the quirks or the things you can bring into the world, right? This is what brings us into individualism to a certain degree, but we're still together. But we have to have fun with our quirkiness and our little different nuances and our different.
I love that. Noletta says, practice snow with a foot stomp. No.
There you go.
No. This I'm sitting, I can't do the foot stomp, so I can do the fist. No. And Deb, I love that. She's an optician, and the medical field told her to put UV protection on all the lenses. And this is fantastic. They told us we need sunlight through us, even our eyes, for the vitamin D. It's not just vitamin D. Take a look at sun gazing and how important. They've always told us never look straight at the sun. Well, guess what? Yes, it's actually very healthy to look straight at the sun. Maybe not high noon.
First morning and late, like at the end of the day, right?
Like not high noon, but when it's starting to set and it's not as intense, absolutely. And there's sun gazing protocols, and I won't go through them here. I'd actually have to pull them up to say, but it's usually sunrise, sunset, and spend some time, and it does change things. Yeah. It does. My evening walks, that's when I actually do a lot of sun gazing walking.
And no more sunglasses. There's a time sometimes if it's too bright, you have to, depending on the lightness of your eyes. But I agree. And when you walk, sometimes I'll have them down my nose a little bit. But then what I do is I know it can touch my third eye, and it's on the majority of my head. So I know these are really good.
Beautiful. To Alma's comment, self-respect. I learned I couldn't force someone to respect me, but I could refuse to be disrespected. Totally. Absolutely. And you know what, Alma? It's funny. I have at the beginning of all this and all of this crazy, and I was telling my story, and I went through a period of, I think, a month or two where everybody was trying to put me down. It's like my voice didn't matter. And what do you think you're doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I actually just said, I had to do this 3 times. 3 times. I do not accept this and you putting me down and thinking I don't matter. I reject all this. And please, if you want to have a conversation with me, you will never say this to me again. Because I will. No. You're not putting me down. And that is a lack of respect, that I can't do what I want to do, that I can't do what, use my voice. And it was all fear-based. I'll tell you, all of these things for them was fear-based, because you can't put yourself out there. What you're saying goes against what I believe, so don't say it. And some of that's about what you want. I'm not telling you to change your mind. I'm telling you a different way to think, and maybe look at things a little differently. Open your mind. You don't have to go with everything I say. Right.
Yeah, no, the sunscreen, everything, just what do you call that? Poisonous at every level, right? So people judge. That's a good point that you made there. And I'm not saying they did it, whether they did it intentionally or not, but if they try to judge or shame you, control you or shame you, that's usually a sign that somebody's trying to usurp your self-respect or your control of yourself, your autonomy, and they want to gain the upper hand. So that's a great example, Betty, of setting a boundary, right?
And they were not allowed to.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to talk to me? You don't talk to me like this, and that's it. I'm sorry.
And you're prepared to walk away. This is the key. Be prepared to walk away, but walk away.
Yeah.
If that's what happens, just, I'm out of here. And sometimes you just need to set it with one person for the others to see that you mean what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It is. But believe me, the way I said it, there was no uncertain terms. I wasn't putting up with this shit anymore. Done. Thank you very much. No.
Yeah.
Sorry. And it's because I do respect myself. And look, we're all works in progress. I am a work in progress. That is what being in this space means. Being in this, bodysuit, learning. That's what we're here to do. We're supposed to learn. We're supposed to come back to who we are. It is a journey. Nobody came here with the full package ready to go. Okay. Even Jesus actually went to school. All of those years in the Bible that are missing are all of him in like Egypt and different places learning, coming into his own
classroom. That's the thing, right? Learning can be done anywhere, and that's the idea, that it's all been usurped and taken and put under one area of control, which we don't need to do.
Hey, Teresa, we got a great group today.
Yes, we do.
Everybody, all the usual suspects are here.
So we're going to talk a bit about what people can do to increase their self-respect. Your body listens to everything you say. Speak nicely to yourself. Tell yourself nice things. Say, I love you, I love you, I love you. Express how grateful you are to your body for being open to learning new things. So really talk yourself up, talk yourself into a good game for yourself, so that when you start doing this, you'll know what it feels like if somebody else says something to you and it doesn't feel quite as right, that it won't drop you down, right? Affirmations. I love, somebody told me to use affirmations, but use the word now to bring it into the present moment. I love me now. I am happy now. I'm so excited about life now. And now brings it to the present moment, which allows you to feel it, which makes you feel you're living it, which changes the energy instead of just wanting it.
Yes, like puts it in the future, and tomorrow never comes, guys.
Yeah.
Tomorrow never comes. Thanks for vibing high today.
Aren't we? Everybody is.
And I love, Lori was on Wednesday, and the whole fuckery thing. I love that. Do you know how many times I've been like, I've used that since Wednesday, the fuckery. So Lori, just so you know, I've hijacked that, and it's like, I was talking to a girlfriend, and it was like, all this fuckery.
It's everywhere. It's always been
on everything. And she just looked at me, and I'm like, what? You know what? She knows I love my 4-letter words. I do.
So I have another one. Clear out past behavior. Nothing is worse than making you not respect yourself. If you're stuck on one thing you did that you shouldn't have done and you wish you hadn't done, but you haven't cleared it out of your energy field. And I'm not going to give examples of it because some are this big and really aren't significant, but the person thought they were. Some are huge and the person needs to forgive themselves because they didn't know or they were given advice to do something and it turns out it wasn't in their best interest. You got to forgive yourself for past behavior you didn't know. If you keep doing it after you've forgiven yourself, now you got to look at it because you're lying about either forgiving yourself or about that you felt bad about it, right? So that's one. Clear. I have a lot of people I work with, they'll tell me things that they've done and I'm like, and? Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's clear this out. It doesn't matter. You've been carrying it for 40 years, 50 years. You know what I mean? You made a mistake. So let's clear it out and start respecting and coming into your true self again, right? How much you love yourself. Get to know your values. And I know I've put my book up a few times. I don't have one right handy with me. Chapter 2 is all about your values. And what I did with that chapter, I get people to write out their values. And then I get them to explain why they like their values to themselves. It's not about anybody else. And then they go through and articulate, does that ring true? Because sometimes people think they have values. It's just somebody else's program. So you have to go through and learn. When you learn to do that and go through and say, well, why is this my value? Where do I practice this value? So you can catch yourself if you're doing the mind fuckery to yourself even, right?
Oh, yeah. And we will mind fuck ourselves. That's for sure. We do it. We're so good at it because we were taught at an early age.
Yeah.
Because gaslighting has been going on since birth. We've been gaslighted since birth. I mean, even just Santa Claus, right? Yes. That's a total gaslighting. And
to break trust in the family.
That whole, like everything. And I'm sure that, parents around the world who, had Santa Claus and put presents under the tree from Santa Claus were not doing it from a malicious place because it was like, but it seems fun. It's like, oh, this is so much fun for the kids. It's like, a little bit of mysticism. This big fat man comes through the chimney. We leave him milk and cookies and he eats it and they're gone. And the kids are so excited and happy. Santa Claus came. How can that be bad? Well, because when they find out the truth, that this has all been a hoax. How do you feel when you find out everything has been a hoax? How did we feel when we found out the whole construct of our lives was a hoax, whenever that was? Yeah. Was it 20 years ago? Was it 5 years ago? Was it a year ago? Was it 6 months ago? It sucks that everybody lied to you. It sucks. And how about the most important person in your life when you're a child, your parents, is where you get all of your information from, was gaslighting you.
Hard to take, right? But the good news, now that we're all in charge of ourselves,
yes,
we can seek out our own path to truth, our own path back to growth, self-development, and our higher abilities. So we're in charge now, right? That's the beauty of all this.
Yes, and then there's some forgiveness that goes along with it. The forgiveness of buying it when it was like the media and our churches and whatever. We bought it. We chose to buy it once we became adults. The mind fuckery, as I'm going to steal from Lori.
But it's so
and but and then even our parents who, you know what, they did not do this from malice.
No,
but they, all of those good things that where they gaslighted you, where they thought it was, this is fun and this will be good. You got to forgive them for that. This is not about, oh, look at that, because it's freaking worldwide. Like everybody bought that particular, line or the psyop of Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and all of that crap.
So I'm going to go back. I started figuring this out about 2012, and I'm like, as I'm writing letters to government, and I'm like, they can't be this fucking stupid. And as soon as I said that, boom, it was the emails I was sending. I realized it's intentional. Yeah. I didn't have to forgive myself. I didn't know. I was doing what I thought was right. Working, paying taxes, contributing to the system, volunteering, donating money, doing the thing, like doing the living the dream kind of thing, doing what was expected in society. I didn't know. But as soon as I knew, then I started making changes. So it's nothing, I don't have anything to forgive myself. I'm meant to be here now for 2021 when all these changes are coming through.
Yeah, but some people do, because you feel like, how could you blame yourself for not seeing through the facade earlier. Well,
so the people coming through after this, I think, are going to have a lot of that, especially when people tried telling them. Nobody was trying to tell me. I figured this out for myself, right? But so what I'm saying is sometimes you don't have to forgive yourself. You're like, wow, I didn't know. you don't feel like the need to forgive yourself for anything, then don't forgive yourself, right? Like you don't have to go back and forgive yourself for something that you didn't know. But
no, and you're right. I mean, I learned this like 20 years ago, and it's like, actually, I did have to forgive myself on the whole children thing, because if I continued down that rabbit hole 20 years ago, I probably would have found it. And I didn't, because I realized I was, you know what? I prayed it wasn't going to happen in my lifetime. Plus, nobody around me was willing to have the conversation. And it's like, all right, you know what? This is actually going to hurt me more than it's going to help me to know the agenda. So we have to leave this. It's in my head. Pray it doesn't happen. But I know these assholes exist. And finding out about it last year in March, as soon as all this stuff hit, that's when I realized. I was like, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, if I knew back then. But if I look at it now, what could I have done as the sole person when nobody would have listened to me even for the simple stuff back then?
So, Betty, I sent letters to governments in Ontario, out to Alberta, the health ministers, premiers, the prime minister, the Justice Department, the Law Commission of Ontario. They all blew me off. You wouldn't have made any difference, but it doesn't matter. You just had to learn it faster in a shorter period of time. I learned it over a longer period of time. There's no right or wrong. It's not one's better than the other. I'm just saying they could have blown you off because it's intentional. That's what we're seeing now, how intentional it is. So that's easier for maybe you to forgive yourself with that, right?
Oh, I've forgiven myself. It's like now you just plow ahead, and that is a big part of the reason I actually started this channel. And it wasn't about exposing what was going on with the kids, but it's like exposing it to some extent. But the bigger part is now, how do we heal ourselves so we can actually make sure this never happens again? And we got to fix it, and we got to fix ourselves first. You can't fix anybody till you fix yourself, and then we can move into the world as a brighter light. And the more of us that are bright lights, we shine the light in the darkness.
So everybody's at a different spot. There's people like Alan Fountain that's talking about setting up think tanks. Like everybody's, and doesn't mean because he's doing things externally that he won't a month from now go back and find something that comes up internally and work on it, right? So we're going to oscillate back and forth, I think, as we start coming out into more of an understanding of exactly how evil this is, right? Know who you are. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of who you are. So notice June is Pride Month. So they took the word pride, bastardized it, flipped it upside down. So basically now how you have sex is how you're supposed to be proud of yourself instead of being proud of who you are as a human being. Yeah. So a lot of things have been hijacked, right? So you hijacked one word, but they hijacked another word. So what will people do to increase their self-respect? That was kind of what I was wanting to leave everybody with. What are you going to do to increase your self-respect? I don't know if people want to share them here, or just know you're going to build up on one area of your life that you want to. You just know that, no, I'm going to claim my power here. I'm going to claim it with my son or my daughter, or I'm going to claim it within where I work. I'm going to claim it within just myself and start building up my own self-worth and know that I deserve to bring my highest and best self forward, like stuff like that, right? But it's all about doing the work.
Yeah. And the one thing we didn't touch on is, as you actually start thinking about all those things and how you're going to show up in self-respect, there is some fear of the loss. And I didn't use the word fear, but I think getting past the fear and being okay with whatever the outcome is. Because you know what? If it's for you, it won't go by you, right? I always believe that. If you, there's also that poem, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it was always meant to be. And if it doesn't, it was never yours to begin with. And that's kind of, I think, the way we have to look at a lot of the relationship and things in our lives going forward is you have to release it. We surrender and to bring up the vibration and bring up society. And then what comes back, and things will come back.
But letting go is also part of the universal, the way the energies work. You pass it over, like you give it over to the universe, ask for it and let it go for this and something better, right? And so Noelle is saying we need to write our own definition of worth. Totally, 100%. And
they've totally done fuckery on our dictionary and what our words mean.
So we know what we mean inside, like when we write certain things out, what they're going to mean to us, right? Yeah. And everybody's got different priorities. And this is what's great about it. It lets everybody decide what their own priorities are, where they want to put their attention, but still allow us to really feel good about ourselves because we are who we're waiting for. And so I'm not going to say I have a selfish motive for wanting this conversation to happen about self-respect. But when we go into the higher realms of consciousness, the love, the joy, the peace, and are manifesting from there because they vibrate faster, I think we're going to get bigger results. So I think this is all part of the consciousness movement, that we're bringing all of this energy in. We're starting to understand how important and significant we are, so that as we evolve, that we are going to, it's going to be easier to make the jump. I don't know. That's what I think.
100%. I agree. And I did, while we were talking, I did pull a card for today.
Okay.
And on this, and it's trust. I accept that my inner voice will always guide me correctly. And it's about connecting, knowing your inner voice. Because we all have like two, right? You've got the good one and the bad one. Which one are we going to?
I could never buy into that one.
Oh, come on, Sandy. It's that little, and I think it's
I do what I want.
Hmm?
I just do what I want.
Well, fair enough. But most people have. It's a lot of that negative self-talk. I actually think it's more of that negative self-talk.
Okay.
Not necessarily having a devil, but that we have a voice that puts us down and a voice that puts us up. And you have to listen to the one that actually raises you up, not the one that puts the self-doubt in your ear. And that's all programming, right? That's all programming. It's not like a little devil and a little angel, but we say that they're a little devil and a little angel. But we're going to listen to the angel, the one that actually is helping us move forward, not the one that makes us fearful and move back.
Yeah.
So I know.
So that's ultimately what the goal is you trust yourself, no one else. And we've talked about this on many, many occasions, right? That is ultimately what the goal is. And self-respect works towards trusting yourself, because you know you're worth more. You know, the individuals know, everybody knows. And Absolutely. You bring this collective energy together, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, the funny thing is I look around and, you know, from the conversation I had yesterday, with a friend of mine who, you know, was with another family member, and it was a bit of a heated discussion about, you know, getting the, you can't say that word too often, even the J word. Oh, Jesus. Not
that wasn't the J word.
No, that was not the J word. That was a frustration, J word. But it's interesting to see the people parroting what's in the news and what we should, and the rules. How much do you have to is there a lack of trust in yourself and your own knowing that you actually abdicate all of your knowing to something outside of yourself? Even when a lot of these same people realize that the rules don't make sense, yet they're still pushing them.
There's enough fear in our society. I think a lot of people who are, I'm going to use the word lack courage, use the saying lack courage. They know something's wrong, but they haven't got the courage to stand up. They would rather keep their head in the sand and hope they are one of the ones who make it through. Yeah. And I've noticed that with a certain, I can't define it as a personality type, but there is certain people out there that they know, but they think if they just keep their heads down, they're going to get through and nobody's going to notice them if they mind their own business and don't put their neck out, right?
Yeah, sorry. I heard a little whimper behind me. I'm
going to let you explain that or not.
No, it's my puppy. She's sleeping behind my back here. She sleeps behind my back most days when we're on here. So she's usually very quiet. So I don't know what's going on, baby. Anyway, but we are at 102, and they don't want to admit they're brainwashed. And that's the key, Noletta, and that's what I was talking about earlier, that I think these guys who have been told repeatedly by people like us in their lives that this is all BS, and it's actually shown to be BS, there's going to have to be a lot of inner work and a lot of forgiveness of themselves that needs to happen, because they chose to be blind. People will still choose to be blind even after it's right in their face that they were lied to, because some people, their ego is so big that they won't be able to. And that, you know, go back to my
totally. And we're going to see a lot of that, right? And when that happens, that's where we're going to see the people. We're going to see a lot of animosity and certain things like that. But they're the ones who are going to have to start wondering why they were willing to turn a blind eye for so long. And that's what I think is they're going to be the ones who will have trouble looking in the mirror.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, somebody had mentioned to me yesterday, we were talking about the kids and trafficking and what was happening to them in different sexual positions and what it would do to the physical body and things like that. And she goes, some people just can't handle this. And I said, you know, I'm getting really sick and tired of hearing that, because while people can't handle it, this is physically happening to little babies who are getting their bums ripped out because they're being sodomized so bad. So it doesn't matter what we think anymore. It's about what's actually happening at somebody else's expense. And that's where I think we're going to start seeing a cut in the fabric.
Well, I think that actually goes very well to that video I sent you yesterday on the 5 signs of still being a Satanist.
I'm going to watch it. Yeah.
Oh, did you watch it?
I watched part of it, but I just got to part of it. And then
I think that's number one, is that as long as everything is good in my bubble,
yeah,
I'm not doing anything.
So chances are you're a narcissist or a sociopath if that's actually how you are, that arrogant that you think, oh, as long as it doesn't affect me.
But that is that you're still, even if you don't know it, you're actually following the satanic cult. And so even if you're a Christian, sorry guys, if you still think your bubble is all you need, well, you're wrong.
Kevin Annette just put up an interview video today. I put it on my Facebook page. I think I put it on Telegram as well, but he's basically saying it's all the Christian, the Catholic, at the Anglican and Presbyterian churches, where what's happening, they're digging up babies or bodies of children at these residential schools. Now they've got people going in and trying to desecrate whatever's happening and mess it up so that the evidence isn't there. There's also another fellow who did the Girls Gone Bad video. Supposedly he's not a good man. He's in Hollywood and things happened in his house. Well, he was arrested 2 weeks ago. His house just burned down yesterday, his mansion, where everybody went and partied. And they say there was 20 staff at the house when it burned. So things are starting to happen, right? We're starting to see that the old structures are falling apart.
Yeah, we just have to keep our eyes open because we are winning. I'm sorry, guys, we're winning. I can see it. I can see the writing on the wall, even with all the fear mongering they're trying to do. And that, like here in Canada, the Bill C-10, C-36 coming, whatever. Yeah. You know what? This is all fear mongering. It's they're in their death throes, right? They're still like trying to like throw stuff, even though they know they're dead. But I'm still gonna get a good jab into you and create some more fear. Let me like harvest some more fear on the way out.
Yes.
Right? That's and I'm sorry, somebody's car alarm is going off. And who has fucking car alarms anymore? Like that actually, finally they said, like, who does this anymore? Like what is it, 1995 again? Remember when they went off in parking lots all over the place like crazy? For some reason.
Can't say I do. So maybe we'll wrap it up from here. And so what is it Noella saying? I had a few friends and share the two. Why would they not? Yeah, I know you don't get it, but we do get it, Noella. When they don't get it, we get that there's probably reasons that they really do get it. And that's part of the problem.
Some people just don't want to see it. I was actually talking to someone yesterday about what was going on with the children. And I'm like, and this is the answer I got, which actually I was like, fine, whatever. I don't want to hear about it. It's lowering my vibration.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? If you don't know what's really going on in the world, you're living in la fucking land.
You're the low vibration.
I can actually continue to have my vibration up, but be aware of the atrocities that happen in the world. Did I at the beginning? No, that actually really dropped me down. And I had to build back up with the knowing of what I'm fighting against now.
And that happens over time. That's why you do the work, right? So dealing with spouses, sometimes people are having trouble right now because a lot of the spouses, one is awake and one is not. I'm not giving any kind of advice here, but there's things where sometimes you have to decide for yourself. Yep. What hill you're dying on. Is that the hill you're going to end your relationship on? Because when the truth comes out, they are going to be looking for answers. Maybe they don't want it from you, but there will be no more denying it anymore. If it is out on the broadcast system or it is on the radios, it's coming out. There's no way it's not. So hopefully you just don't talk about it too much with them. I don't discuss this with everybody I see. I pick and choose. I don't talk to my neighbors about it. I don't need anybody here saying she's crazy.
Yeah. Well, this is somebody who, for me, that was somebody who, obviously has been on this spiritual journey, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I can't hear it. You're bringing down my vibration. Fuck off. You know what? Enough. You want to be blind forever and you're okay with it? It's going to be in your face. Okay.
It is.
There is no other way around it. If at least being aware, it's not going to be so jarring.
Here's an example of self-respect. We respect ourselves so much and we respect others and the little ones that we are so adamant about this. This is an example of standing in your power. Like we're not backing down. This is what self-respect does, that we respect ourselves and our collective humanity.
Yes.
this shit's ending. It's being called out one way or another, and new systems are going to come in.
Well, if we all went, I'm just going to deal with my vibration and not worry about these poor children. Well,
you're not a very nice person.
What's the problem? We'd still be in this mess.
What's wrong with you?
Continue to be in this mess if everybody around the world was not looking for a way to actually help this. And a lot of it is we have to raise our vibrations, but we have to be aware. We have to be aware and bringing voice to it and speaking it to more and more people becoming aware. Guess what? They can no longer walk down the streets because we know who they are.
A lot of the self-respect, now take that outside of us. So when somebody comes up and says, oh, that's just conspiracy, you respect yourself enough and you can hold the line and hold the boundary. You can have a conversation about it without you losing your mind or getting too emotional in your response, because they'll say you look nuts. And just
I can tell them. If somebody told me it was a conspiracy, I say, you're absolutely right. It is a conspiracy because it is more than one person. It is two or more people who are working behind the scenes to do this behind our backs and trying to keep it hidden. That's a conspiracy. So 100%, it actually is. Thank you for recognizing that it is a conspiracy. It is a conspiracy against humanity.
Yeah. And there's some people who would still twist that up, right? It's just,
it's a wonderful way to just twist it back on them. You're absolutely right. It is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Do you understand what a conspiracy is?
And turn their words against them.
Exactly. And that's like when I think it was Noletta who said, we got to take our words back. I'm taking conspiracy back. And if a conspiracy theory is so garbage, then let's get rid of Darwinism because that's a theory. How about the theory of relativity? What about all these stupid theories? Let's throw them out because you know what? They're garbage because they're
garbage. They're lies.
They're lies. Well, most of those are.
They are. I know they are.
The conspiracy theory is the only one that's true. It's funny. I'm just saying it's a play on words. Yeah. But if the theory part is what gets you, well, then let's get rid of all the theories you've been taught. I mean, I had a head-to-head about 15 years ago with somebody on Darwinism, and I was like, yeah, I don't believe it. It's garbage. I said, have you read it? He's like, he wrote his freaking thesis on it. I'm like, oh, well, okay. So you do know there's big fat holes in it. It doesn't make sense. I didn't have to write a thesis coming out. Oh, it was like he was like losing his mind because he couldn't get me to go no. I was like, oh no, and then I would bring something else up, and I'm like, and he was losing his mind because everything his whole reality was built on this theory. I mean, he wrote a fucking thesis on it, and so he based so much of life. And I'll be honest, Darwinism is exactly what they want us to believe because it's survival of the fittest, and they are the fittest. We are the lowly serfs that actually can all be.
So we have a few comments here. Deb is saying that theory is what her kids are learning in science. And I'm hoping, Deb, they come out with a new curriculum that will correct that and help the parents to see that it was based on lies. So I don't know what's going to happen for the people who have little ones and even like, in the 20s and 30s right now who go along. So can you please comment on the flat earth? I don't have anything to say about the flat earth. I honestly don't care. I know in the physical realm, I need something under my feet right now. And just because there's theories out there doesn't mean we need to know what the answers are in them. We just need to know that we're awakening to know things aren't the way they appear to be and more information's coming in. So that's how I'm playing it at this point.
And a theory is just basically it's the working idea or thought process on something without that you don't have all the evidence for. So do we have all the evidence of a flat earth? No. Do we have all the evidence of a round earth? No. So guess what? We can wait and see what it is. There's so many theories out there that we actually are going to learn so much as we go through. Is that the hill you want to die on?
No.
Is that the most important thing right now? Whatever it is, be open to whatever comes and the information.
As be shown the truth when you need to know, right?
Yeah.
So Britney Spears, she's glitched a couple times and they figured her programming was coming off. They say there's, I can't remember what canyon it is in the Los Angeles area where they have a CIA building. And whenever anybody's coming off the programming, the musicians, they take them back and reprogram them. So I don't know what's happened to her. Last I heard, I think her father still manages her money. So she doesn't have because I think they're trying to control her in many ways. But it will be interesting to hear what she has to say, when she has to say, and it'll be interesting to see who tries to ridicule her or shame her. And I'm just going to take the information as it comes, and I'll make my decisions as I go. But some of these people, I would imagine Britney Spears has also done things to other people when she was a child, because that's how they get them in, even as children. So there's going to be information that comes out, but I also think there's going to be a lot of us reconciling just how evil this is. So I'm not casting blame or shame or doubt on her, but I think it's going to be ugly. That's what I think, that whatever she starts to come out with, if she survives it, because anybody who says I'm going to speak up usually gets death threats, or they get wiped, right?
Yeah, and there is opportunity to explore, time for fun. PHUN. You're right. It is an opportunity to explore it. Nothing, even in the conspiracy theory, there's so much more information. We haven't got it all. That's why we can theorize. But once you'll know the truth when we get all the information, everything is exposed.
Right.
And
so until then, you build your spiritual muscle and you build your awareness and your consciousness. Get to respect yourself more, love yourself more, trust yourself more. Trust to sit with, I don't know, just to sit with curious, right? But know that it's okay just to not have an answer. I don't know yet, but I'm open to hearing different things. So Jack, the programming by the experts, they're just narcissists. That's the front line. Think of them as the grunts in the military that they send out first. All those experts that sit there and diagnose you with something that's wrong with you, you can never find what's right with you if you're only looking for what's wrong. They haven't figured that out, or at least they haven't shared that with the masses. But when we go to be told by the experts, we're giving our power away to them, instead of saying, I'm willing to hear some of what you have to say. If you are, if you're not, you don't. Yeah, is it Laurel Canyon? Yeah, that's what it was, right? So that's where they had the CIA building in there, that they would take everybody in and reprogram them. So I think if Britney Spears makes it out and she can talk, I think more people are going to do that, in my opinion. Yeah. But it's going to break our hearts, even though I do my best to keep my frequency somewhat consistent. There's going to be things that it's going to hurt. So the more grief that we process now, we're going to learn how to process. Maybe we should do a show on processing grief, because there's ways to go through that. And I know you know, right? And I know different ways too. It's okay. We all know it. Yeah. But we're going to need to know how to process grief. It came up this morning, something I thought, if this starts happening, we're going to lower the frequency, because everybody's going to be grieving. And I know this because so many people are going through problems right now.
And nobody knows how to grieve. We have never been taught how to grieve. We live in this society that, for some reason, even though everybody dies, we live under this illusion that we're all going to live forever. That's why the C-19 thing took such hold. We're going to die. Well, everybody's going to freaking die. Let's see. Is it going to be this or something else? Like, it was this huge fear of death. And, let's look at, I looked at the numbers for Canada for two flu seasons, lower than the average, because we are now 2 flu seasons, and they're doing a collective number of, 28,000 people. And most of those aren't even, they lumped a lot of stuff in, and the average is 18,000 in a year. So we just hit our second flu season. We haven't doubled that number.
And it's all just a show, right? We'll figure all this out.
Yeah, it's all like science bullshit, make believe, bought and paid for. Everything is bought and paid for.
All the grants and the studies. But here's the thing. If we stop believing them, that's going to help the old system fall away, because they're not going to have the minions who carry out the orders that are coming down from the politicians, whose orders are coming down from the puppeteers. So it doesn't matter. It's all going to dissolve on its own. But the more we strengthen ourselves, come into our power, know that we're not being lied to anymore. We're not accepting this. We respect ourselves, and you're not getting away with this. The better we are going to have at, I don't want to say taking a run at, but letting the experts know you're not an expert in being human. There is no expert. I'll look after myself. Thank you very much. If I need your help, I'll let you know. So I think we're going to change. Now, didn't that sound very like with a lot of authority, right? Didn't that sound really powerful? But it's not. It's about just saying that, like you said before, stomping your feet or pounding your fist on the table. I'm not taking this anymore. So this is going to help strengthen the collective consciousness too.
Yeah, and that's all about taking your power back. Saying exactly. No and stomping your foot or your no. Being forceful in that no, and letting people know when you say it, you mean it.
I had a client did that with somebody who was older who was very cantankerous, and he just said he just nailed the counter and just said, "This is we're done." And he said the old guy looked at him and backed off, and has never done it since. So I'm not saying you have to get physical, but sometimes you do. You have to show. I don't care if you're hurting me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. I've got all those in my toolbox as well that I can hurt back to defend myself and back you off, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Ken.
Hello, Ken. All right. Well, we're just wrapping up, Ken. Hopefully you can back it up and watch it from the beginning. But good things are coming. Good things are coming.
What is that card? Can you bring it in closer?
Ace of Wands.
Yeah. Good things are coming. We know this. I totally agree with that too. But we step in our power.
Wands are fire. We've got some really good energy coming in. And I don't know if you can feel it after yesterday's moon. I was so disappointed because it was so cloudy yesterday. I didn't get to see the actual full moon. And I think they do it on purpose because that was a really powerful full moon. If you guys didn't know, I think I mentioned it on Wednesday. But it doesn't matter if you see it or not. Intentions are more powerful, and it's bringing in that change we are seeing. And I think, well, Sandy knows better than I do because she actually does Vedic astrology. The stuff, I mean, this is historic what's going on in the skies. And it is historic. I've never followed astrology like I have over the last few months, and more Vedic, because I didn't even realize you did Vedic astrology. And then I started watching people who do Vedic astrology, and it's like, it is so cool. We are in the most amazing times on the planet. And I actually say, all of us on here, be so thankful that we are awake and aware to watch it, because man, what a show. Those people who are blindly following have missed it. In hindsight, I think at the end of this, and I'm trying to look at it from that, like on the celebration side, looking back, going, look what we went through and look what we were able to accomplish.
It will make us feel more proud as well that we got to see it too, right?
Yes. And that's
that. Yeah. Should we finish on that note?
Because we're looking at an hour after, and I've got a dog that's grunting and snorting down at my feet. I think
okay, everybody.
WALK.
Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless. We love you guys. We are all in this together. When I say that, I mean this group, and great things are going to come. It just doesn't feel that way. Take care.
Oh, it's coming, babies.